What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here. Hashtag BYP on the YouTube channel, social media, hashtag BYP, IG, Twitter, and the like. Our guy, the prop, Professor Shine, kind enough to join us with his weekly spot from our good friends over at Play Against Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road, playagainstsports.com. Check them out online. They got some great used new sports merchandise memorabilia. I was in the store a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it was like a golf haven. I'm not much of a golfer, so no wonder for me doing laps in the store. We sat right around 4 or so, but they got wonderful merchandise. Everyone was helpful. They got some old school jerseys as well and tees. So encourage you guys to check it out. And I don't know, the prop's been all over the place, man. He's hitting on baseball. We get a little NBA. Maybe he dabbled in some poker tournaments. He's like Arafat, right? Never a night at the same port.
Yeah. And I got lookalikes hanging out with me, so that I can get a bet in. Everybody's so afraid to take a bet these days, and with online, you see Poker Stars bought by Fanatic, not Poker Stars, Points Bet.
Yep.
Poker Stars. I got poker on the brain. Points Bet got bought by Fanatics. Everybody's kind of holding their breath to see if Fanatics is going to be another DraftKings sports book, or are they going to give some real competition, be more like Circa out in Vegas, or where they don't mind if you catch a run of 10-1 in baseball, even if it's lucky.
I don't, not to cut you off real quick. It's funny you said that because, the whole online and even with brick and mortar with the casinos, right? I mean, think about it. Borgata, since MGM took over a couple of years ago, the rating, right? This ratings, everything, tier credits, right? It's like how we value the player. You and I walk in there and we drop, $2,000 2 or 3 times a month on a slot machine over 5-6 hours. They're loving us. But if we sit at a blackjack table and lose 25,000 in one shot, we're never coming back. And they know that. I mean, it's, they try to entice you. And I guess I bring it up is because it's amazing when you talk about average bet, time, duration, pull, whether it's tables, whether it's slots. We know they're the most profitable in the industry. But then to your point about the online, it's tough, man, because you shouldn't be penalized as a bettor or a sports bettor or a handicapper for winning, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the house always has the odds and advantage. That's why a lot of these online sports entities, they'll push the parlays. Why? Because you and I know it's the most difficult to hit, right? The same game, the in game, the same game.
Sure. Yeah, there's more. You're going to win. The books win more. I mean,
right. So
in parlay, so they used to be, the old style was, if you were booking, don't get killed on straight games, push the parlay cards.
Yes. Yes. And the issue I have is that it doesn't match what I'm potentially betting, I guess, when I'm looking at what I'm getting back in return, so to speak. I mean, think about it. You walk in brick and mortar, I got to sit down. If I'm sitting down at a $25 blackjack table, I can't sit down with 200-300. I got to at least have 1,500, 2,000. I'm going to catch 5, 6, 7, 8 bad hands, right? A run of bad cards in a shoe. But if I drop that, technically, right, you think about it, 10% of my losses should be comped back. It doesn't work like that. The same thing, that's why we always tell people shop around with some of these online promotions, because some of them, you look at them and you're like, read the fine print. Half these guys don't even understand what the friggin' wagering requirements are when you have to play through. So
there's a story out there now about I think somebody who works for, it's a lawyer who works for federal government. I can't remember what department. I only saw the MGM in Virginia. Guy used one of the promos and then soon realized, this was a kind of a bait and switch, and he called them on the carpet, and supposedly BetMGM offered him $12,000 and a non-disclosure.
Oh, an NDA.
Yeah. So, that article's out there. If you look for it, I only read it.
Well, so much for the NDA. It's out there.
And he said he turned it down. He says, that's fine for me, but what about the next guy? So it's a long going conversation. on Twitter and in other social media spots where the regulators don't know what they're doing. So they're either inept or corrupt. And, a lot of them don't know how to regulate. So they're just like, yeah, that sounds fine. Sports gambling sense. The old model of sports betting before online was, like I said, push the parlay cards. Of course, there was problems there with the book. Sometimes the parlay cards had stale numbers. But let's assume that most of them were good, or people weren't taking advantage of that. The piece that they could hold out of that, or they were going to win out of that, is, obviously 30% or higher, and straight games is going to be 5%. So, but the thinking was straight games were almost like a loss leader. Somebody might go in, I might go in and bet you straight games, but I might bring somebody with me that plays slots, or I might go 4-1 in baseball and go play craps.
Right.
There's a lot. I haven't read anything like that in a while.
Right.
Nobody's really touched on that, but I remember at least 10 years ago, before this exploded, that was kind of like the model. And I personally knew people that were decent handicappers, decent advantage bettors when it came to sports, and even decent poker players, and even blackjack guys that could count decently. And then when they got to craps table, all that went out the window. They were gamblers. So, they were like, it came from this structured environment. It was almost like an investing thing. And they were like, oh, craps is fun. So if I'm running a casino and a sports book connected, I don't mind if I'm giving back a little.
The cross-pollination.
Sure. And there's a way, obviously, to keep track of that.
Yeah.
Is that guy coming? And this is why they want to kill, or a lot of sports books. I know South Point in Vegas was getting killed with this also, about, the limits on the app. And I get it from a sports book point of view. The app, you're not coming in, you're just betting. So why are they going to give you 15, 20,000 on the app when they have no, if you're decent, you have a chance of getting it back.
Yeah. So are you talking about, so a couple of things now, just for the viewing audience, just to clarify, are you talking about, let's just say if I set a daily limit for myself, that I can't go over $5,000 worth of bets and funds, right? I'm not be able, I can't increase that. Or you're saying there's a limit on the Mets and the Phillies where I cap it off. You can only bet up to X amount of dollars.
Well, because the regulators have kind of left this kind of open, especially in New Jersey, they DraftKings and basically everybody else, nobody has to post limits. So when you don't have to post limits, I can pick and choose what I want.
Oh, absolutely. But
I'm speaking mostly from the.
I got you, because a lot of. Yeah. What I try to tell people, or at least kind of educate them on that, even brick and mortar, at the end of the day, they don't want, quote, funds on site. I mean, think about it. So it's like having that hanging marker, right? They always say, take out the marker, pay it back right away.
Yeah.
Right. So same thing with the online, because a lot of my friends do the online sports betting, and I try to, it's more and warn them, listen, man, what's going to happen is you hit a couple and you got a couple thousand in there. These apps, they don't want funds on site. So what they're doing is now I got to get on you. I got to send all these promos out, because what happens? I want you to start betting again so I can get the money. And that's ultimately where, like anything else, the discipline comes in. But to your point about that cross-pollination, I think if you are a heavy bettor and you walk up to the window, whether it's, let's just say Atlantic City, my backyard, you walk into Borgata, Harrah's, Hard Rock, whatever, Ocean, and you're also a player in brick and mortar, they should track both of that. And you should be comped, and you should be rated accordingly. Because I think there's a lot of money on site per se. So if I walk in and I'm betting 1,000 a game every NFL Sunday, and then maybe once a month, I'm going to drop another 2 at the blackjack table, that should be combined in my rating.
But here's the problem, Rich. They want to take dumb action. So if an NFL game is lined at 7, and they put it at 7, it goes to 7.5, and you take the favor at 7.5, they're taking that action. They don't care about that action. But if other places have it at 6.5, and you come in, try to hit at 6.5, it goes to 7, they're going to track that. And they don't want that. They might even deny that bet, if it hypothetically falls in it. They'll want you to go somewhere else. So they kind of want it both ways. And what's happened, the regulators have allowed the sports books to have it all. And I thought when New Jersey first got sports betting, naively, I thought that there was going to be some true competition. They would give licensing to a recreational book like DraftKings, et cetera. And then they would have a book where that operated like a real sports book. If they have too much Lakers future action, they'll move certain lines accordingly. And they won't necessarily back you off. They'll say, hey, we're posting this. And what I mean is non-exotic. So prop bets is a different thing. See a lot of people on Twitter complaining about prop bets and, can only get $30. That's like an extra thing. I'm just talking about sides, totals, things like that. There's no way futures. There's no way somebody should be able to go up right now or yesterday and not get, 1,500 say on the Nuggets. Hold on a second. You've been winning. I'm going to only give you 300. Yeah. So that's one whole issue. The second whole issue is certain books are in Nevada. Well, they'll take the higher level. They want you to come in. And that's kind of like the old style, which I remember. And I get it from a sportsbook point of view. I want you to come in because there's a shot you might, again, like I said, you might have some other addiction. You might be pulling slots or something. Or you might be part of a group that somebody in that group.
5-10 guys. Yeah. That want to open up lines of credit. Absolutely.
But if it's just you on the app and you're an advantage player, it's tough to get the money out of you. So I kind of see why they're forcing some people to come in, but right now it's like absolute shit show with people getting limited to $18 and it's really crazy. And this is why I wear sunglasses on this kind of thing. Not that I don't look like 50 different other people walking in. I look like everybody from New York and Philadelphia as it is. I don't think it's not like they're not going to stereotype me as knowing anything.
But how about what? Right? How about what was that? There was a doc. It's probably about 10 to 15 years old. And not to get too sidetracked, but I'm enjoying the conversation, where the guy was an advantage player in blackjack. He was a card counter and he tried every disguise in the book. And, he was flying back home, grabbing 100,000 in cash and, back in the day. And I think a lot of it, I want to say it was before 9/11, where
probably
they really tracked you walking through airports and whatnot. But it was amazing how he would try to get every obscure property, casino, Midwest, everywhere, and mustache, shaved, clean shaven, long hair, glasses, hit 5, 6. His goal was to try to win $1 million within the calendar year.
Well, the New Jersey, the misconception in New Jersey as opposed to Nevada, there was a guy, I can't remember his name. It could have been that guy, but there was somebody that sued. I think Merv Griffin's place threw him out. I think Resorts threw him out and for being an advantage blackjack player, and he sued and won. And he didn't win any money, but he got the right that they're not allowed. New Jersey properties are not allowed to throw you out unless you're a felon.
Was it Don Johnson? Don Johnson, right? That hit the what they hit him for about? He hit him for about 3 in like 3 days. Guys, sitting there, splitting the 4s against the aces, pulling, 6s, doubling down, pulling face cards and, aces. And it turns out it's like a $350,000 swing.
Well, in Vegas, or Biloxi, a lot of these places that they have these rules on the books where they're allowed to just say, hey, you can't come in. But New Jersey does not have that rule. You're not allowed. They're not allowed to throw you out for gambling. You have to either be a drunk that hit the dealer in the head with a chip. You do something out of the ordinary.
But you know what they do?
Have a record. But you know what they can do though?
Yeah.
They can make you in sports. They can limit you to $1.
Of course they can.
Which is the same thing. But the misconception is, yeah, you can get thrown out. You can't. Yeah, you can't.
No, but I'll tell you what they can do, which is a crock of shit. So a lot of times what happens is when players go in, obviously you sit at the table per se, you got to show the card. There's a lot of reasons for that nowadays, but they want to quote rate you, which is another crock of crap. The funny thing is that when they run the card through what they say CMP, Casino Marketplace, there's sections for comments. So for instance, if I like the first seat, if I like the anchor, if I like the third, there's concessions made with certain players. You can split up the aces multiple times, several times. But if you breathe the wrong way, if you eyeball the dealer the wrong way, if you make a comment the wrong way, check, 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 check. Back in the day, what would happen if I'm winning 6, 7 hands in a row and I'm progressing betting and all of a sudden I'm going from 50 to 100 to 253? This is what you get. They switch dealers on me right now. But my point is they have the advantage no matter what.
They want it all. And in just specific sports betting, unless there's decent, like normal regulation, they're going to continue to want it all. And they're going to continue to like basically shake down anybody that's just betting recreationally or betting, betting almost like, I like to say betting as an investment. Yeah, it's an entertaining thing. It's more entertaining than day trading. But, people that are betting, I say semi-serious, they're not looking to lose and they're not complete buffoons. I mean, there's a lot of buffoons out there that Barstool takes advantage of, and all those guys, they're like, hey, come on, 7. But I think there's also a pool of people that are like, hey, you know what? I want to go for the weekend. I want to try to make a little bit of money, play a little bit of blackjack. Oh, what do you mean? I can't get $20, more than $20, on the NBA finals. So I'm curious to where this is going to go. Because eventually, don't you run out of recreational play? Or are they? Well, I said kiddingly on Twitter, I said, pretty soon, Robbins, the guy who runs DraftKings is going to start doing ads in middle school buses. You see DraftKings saying hit same game, same day parlays.
That's hard. I mean, we laugh, right?
We're laughing, but you know what?
It's all about the RG, the responsible gaming, but we laugh. But I think I mentioned this to you in the past, what all the games in sports, ultimately, I think they're going to be a la carte. And I think with a la carte, you're going to have the opportunity while the game is on, before the game, there's going to be designated pre-game shows on each game individually. So think of old school Jimmy the Greek back in the day. I like the Eagles a touchdown better, right? Basically, give me 7, 7 plus. I think that's where it's going to go. And that's going to allow some of these other, the sharps.
Well, you're seeing a lot of that. And
but we're not seeing it where
there's not enough people who know sports. There's more demand than supply for this. That's why you're seeing guys like Pat McAfee saying, NFL's fixed. And, lay to 4 and the line's, 1. You're seeing all this. That's why you're seeing the girls in bikinis coming out. They're saying, hey, I really, what's the, there's a woman who was cooking pancakes on Twitter. And she said, I like the Heat plus 7.5 or 8.5.
And they're getting right.
And there's no difference.
And they're getting and they're getting well. And the funny thing is they're getting paid. People are buying the waffles.
They're getting followers. Which is, I guess if you're getting followers, it's okay, but you're catering to that kind of market of just your
pipe bettors.
Rec bettors. Because I'm a bettor, because years ago I was a rec bettor, I have a different feeling for those guys. There's a percentage of those guys that want to bet. It's almost like they want to play basic blackjack. You're still going to lose basic blackjack, but at least you're in the game. You know,
You're hanging around.
You're not getting killed. You're hanging around.
Yeah.
You know, you're playing. You might be playing parlays that have parlay cards have stale lines. You might be playing teasers that have, you know, plus expected bet, whatever it is. You might be playing underdogs over, you know, as opposed to every favorite on the damn board. You know what I mean? But I'm in the minority. But I just like to see fairness because at least a little bit of fairness. I like to see real competition. That's why I really thought this was going to be, Rich. I thought there was going to be a lot more competition. And then you'd have, you know, a couple books that would say, yeah, whatever, we'll take the 500 or 600. You know, if they take nothing but one action, they'll move the line. They don't back you off. Blah, blah, blah. Everybody's happy. But we'll see. I guess it's still, when did Pascal fall? 4 years ago? 3 years ago? I wish we could have bet on that because I would have won.
You know, by the way, speaking of hanging around, the squad that didn't hang around in Game 7, which was a freaking no-show. You know, that was let me tell you something. That was easy to call because there's no way I felt that team's makeup, their mental makeup, their toughness was going to go on the road in Boston and beat the Celtics after basically having the yips in Game 6. And then turning around and seeing that kind of disgrace.
It takes a special team to win a Game 7. I mean, a couple
100%.
A couple of them pop in my head, and look at those kinds of teams. Obviously, the Cavs with LeBron when they were down 3-1
against Golden State.
Yeah, they won on the road, but the one that stands out of my head is it was a forgotten series. It was when I'm embarrassed to think. I'm almost positive Doc coached
Clippers,
the Hornets.
Okay.
But who was coaching? Wasn't it Doc coaching the Hornets when they had Chris Paul? They had a really good team. It was Chris. They were up 3-1 on the Spurs, and they lost Game 7 at home. They didn't really. The team was young. It was when the Hornets were in New Orleans. So the team was young. They got up 3-1 on the Spurs, and Game 7, Spurs won, but they had a veteran team. And Ginobili was still there. Obviously, Parker, Duncan. They won on the road. I think it was the second round, and that's the kind of team you expect to win on the road. I think didn't Golden State do it against Oklahoma City a few years ago?
Yeah. But look at the makeup of their team.
Yeah, those are the teams. So that's why I didn't think. There's two ways to look at it. I didn't think the Sixers would win that game. I had a pretty decent sized bet on Boston, unfortunately, which is weird because I had a gutter ball Sixers future. Which you're always betting against yourself. But the other way to look at it as, you know, Boston was a substantial favorite in this game. I know Embiid was hurt before Game 1. But they would have been a substantial favorite. They were at least 3-1. I think when Embiid was hurt, it teetered around that. And so you're talking about, you know, you're a 3-1 favorite, and you get to Game 7. That's not market-wise. That's not terrible. You're actually playing a little bit over your head, slightly. Of course, we're in Philly, so it's almost like they teased us with, you know, going up 3-2. That's what really hurt you, going up 3-2, and you had 2 shots to win.
That's the thing. And what's the hardest thing to do in a series? Close it out.
Yeah. You see how good teams like Golden State, again, back to the Spurs, the old Lakers. I mean, they closed teams. Actually, somebody had sent me something about, you know, the Lakers, their first year that they won with Shaq. And, you know, I remember the game, but it's one of those things where you think about it, you remember it, and then you forget about it until someone brings it up, and you're like, oh my God. You know, that first run that Shaq and Kobe and Derek Fisher, they were down 12 the beginning of the fourth quarter to Rasheed Wallace and Pippen's Portland.
Well,
I completely forgot about that.
Well, the big play was the alley-oop.
Remember, that was to take the lead. But they were down 12. And you know what I remember of it? Nobody wanted the ball. Pippins was the top 50 guy. He was like a hot potato. And the only guy who had any guts in that was Wallace. and he couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
But they were up 12. Holy shit. I mean, I know that it's a little bit different because they were at home, but still that type of team.
Yep.
Or heyday it's like the Pistons with Billups. They had that kind of makeup. Rivers is just, I mean, I knew Rivers was going to get canned. I was surprised he didn't get fired last year. My insane prediction from 3 years ago is, I wouldn't say it's close to getting through. I predicted that Brett Brown would get fired and Jay Wright would get the job. They throw $70 million at him. Everybody said I was nuts. But it was a weird reason why. Somebody said, he's got enough money. I said, he's got kids. And he's going to be a grandfather.
Who wants?
You never have enough money with kids.
Honestly, listen, you knew Doc was going to get fired. And look, whether he's collateral damage, the big time fall guy, Harden really didn't endorse him. He'll probably opt out. I mentioned this yesterday on BYP. I think there's going to be a comment coming out of Embiid's mouth where you just decide, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore. There's already these kind of mock scenarios and trades, maybe with Portland. But ultimately, who the hell really wants his job? This franchise is soft and broken right now. I mean, that's.
You know what I like? How about the dude from Wildwood? Vogel.
Frank Vogel?
Yeah, Vogel. I think he got a crappy deal with the Lakers. I mean, I always thought he was a good coach. I didn't think. I mean, I thought he was good. They got a bum rap there. How about the Bucks coach who got? I mean, the guy's brother died. He kept it quiet that his brother died between Game 4 and Game 5. I mean, and I think Darvin Ham was on that Bucks staff, and apparently he accidentally said he's going through some stuff with his brother because it was not common knowledge. But also, I think Giannis was hurt. I think he fell once he hit his back. He played as well as he could. It is an all-time collapse like we talked about. I mean, you have to win that anyway. Lose in the second round. But he's an option. I mean, who else do you hire? Do you hire Monty Williams? I mean,
Sam Cassell?
Maybe. I wouldn't be against Sam Cassell.
So, all right, you got, obviously we saw the Lakers last night. I mean, look, Davis and LeBron, what was it, 60-something points, they still lose. I mean, you saw the, quote, real NBA. Yeah, I mean, come on, man, you got to, right, do what he does best. I mean, I still, maybe it was more of my heart, which is the cardinal sin, thinking Lakers, LeBron, can't bet against them. Tom Brady, can't bet against them. Always proves me wrong. Lakers in 7. But you watch that game last night, man, and they still lose. And it seems Denver's on a mission. I mean, I don't know where you had that series. And then obviously Boston, Miami. I just think Boston is just the better team than Miami. I think they have more scorers, better perimeter defense, and they have 2 plus complementary players. I like the Celtics in 6 against Miami. But how about those series respectively?
If the Heat can push this to 7, it would be interesting. I don't think they're going to win. Obviously, everybody's rooting against Boston in this area. I like Spoelstra. They play great defense. They don't score. They have, but it's just, they have this kind of, it's just too much. You know what I mean? There's no moral victories, but the fact that they got this far is impressive. If they take Boston to a 7th game, that's a big deal. If they win it, if they get taken to a 6th game, I think that's pretty impressive. Yeah. But I mean, overall, they're a 5-1 favorite this late in the year. Those types of teams steamroll. They don't dump this late. The Celtics to win it all, I think, was out there. I think the best line I saw was like plus 115. It's basically an even money roll for them to win this series and then win next series, which is interesting. But but I agree with you. They're going to beat Miami. I just hope it's competitive, back and forth. I don't want to see any 120, 88 games. Nobody really does. I wouldn't mind, a couple 79, 77 games.
Well, if you're going to hammer the under.
Yeah, I looked at some of the box scores of that Pistons Spurs series that everybody kind of forgets.
Was that Chauncey, Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups?
Yeah, because the Lakers weren't in it, and I think it was the Pistons won the year before, and it was an ugly series. It went 7, and Spurs won at home, and there was one game in there, I think it was 90-60 or some crap. It was just you could see a similar series like that. I don't think it'll be that low, obviously, because of the more openness, and Boston shoots 9 million threes. So you probably won't see that. But last night was a show. If you notice, the Lakers were still thinking about, their win Golden State for probably at least the first quarter. And they didn't start playing until the fourth. But I think that's a good sign that this will go pretty far. And if you get to game 7, and James is in a game 7, as much heat as he's taken, as many people, he polarizes a lot of people.
Yep.
I said it on when we spoke a few weeks ago. I said, do you want to see Curry in a game 7 against are you going to bet against Curry in a game 7 against Sacramento? And are you going to bet against James in a deciding game against Memphis? And I said, no, because you can tell these guys paced themselves. If James knows he's got to win, he's got to go 48 minutes to win a series. It's going to be tough to bet against him. So Denver's going to have to get this done, I think, in 6. And this game 2 is unbelievably huge. It's huge. And Lakers, Denver only opened, was it 5.5? That's I don't think it's gonna creep up like the way game 1 did. But you know what? It'll be an interesting series. If you don't have anything on it, it's great for this is a great series for him. Everybody gets to see Joker, who hasn't seen him really maybe all year. They're rooting for their team. Their team's out. They get to see some of the other players. Remember, Michael Porter's back has been bothering him for years. He still said his back's bothering him. But he's getting open shots a lot. And then look at Joker, 14 rebounds or something insane in the first quarter. It's just, I said that screen and roll. I mean, he's like a mountain. You gotta go all the way around him. All full disclosure, I do have a Lakers future. I took a flyer on them before they even got into the play-in game. There was 22-1 and 23-1. And it was 12-1 and 13-1 just for them to win the West. And I'm glad I was partially right. They didn't win yet. And I don't want to call it a hedge. But I didn't play anything back on Denver. But it's weird because I'm rooting for Denver. So it's just, it's a strange, I guess I can't lose. If Denver wins, I'll be like, oh, I wish I hit this future, but it's not life-changing money. So if I do get Lakers, Celtics, I mean, that's great for everybody, isn't it? I think I said, as long as the Heat is in the finals, it's a great matchup. If you get Nuggets,
I think
Celtics,
Boston and Lakers is what the NBA wants.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, you know who wants it? TNT and ABC wants it because that package is already sold. So Silver and those guys are sitting around, hitting each other with hundreds. But it's good for the league moving forward because now you have nostalgia, you have all this thing. They're going to bring Bird back. They already put Bird Magic in those ads for the finals. Bird's holding up the rings, and they hate each other. Maybe they can bring Rambis back and somebody can tackle him.
I mean, we're going old school, right?
Yeah, it's just but I do think it's good that people get to see people there's a lot of people that still haven't seen casual fans that were like, what's this thing, what's this Joker guy, and then or people that were all, fully invested in the Sixers, watching and watching and watching. I do think that the Nuggets will win the series, but I think they have to do it in 6. It sounds odd because Denver's going to be home, but you don't want to be sitting there with a Denver, -5 at home. It's a 1-point game. And I know LeBron gets a lot of heat for not being clutch, but you know what? He's going to drive and dish to somebody, and one of those guys is going to get a wide open 3. Reeves or what, that's the way it's going to work.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, Anthony Davis had 40 points, right? So
I know.
40 points. If he is 40 and 35 and 40 and 10, 35 and 10, 40 and 10, 35, 15.
Wow.
He almost counters out as big a game as Joker may have. It almost counters that.
And that's the problem, right? I mean, because no matter what, it's just like I said, I think they're too tough. I think they're on a mission. And I just think it's a situation where they're going to be a very tough out. Boston, to me, even if they meet Denver, I would still say that I think Denver would actually be a favorite in the NBA Finals.
I think Celtics, it'll be close. Celtics will be, I think, a small favorite.
Yeah.
Just because if you look at the future odds, they're the first favorite right now.
What I know we got a couple minutes left. What anything on baseball?
Oh yeah. Well, we were talking off air. It's going to be. It's kind of obviously Tampa's interesting to watch. That old adage, you know who you are after 40 games.
Cool. They cooled off a little bit after that hot start, and their ERA's gone up a little bit. They were winning a lot with the pitching. Yep.
They've had a. I mean, with the way everybody's playing, with the way schedule is, the way you're playing everybody, it's really interesting to because it's schedule's tough for everybody.
Right.
They're going to fall back to earth, but they got a legit shot to be run 70 and 30 if they're 100 games. I mean, there's been. Remember Seattle had that run. I always look back to the Big Red Machine, although they don't have the record, but that was the best team, I think, of I don't want to go pre-1950, but since 1950 on, the teams that ran out the first 100 games.
Yeah.
I think the 75 team, or maybe the 76.
How about that 84 Detroit Tigers team? I think they were 34-6.
Yeah, and the 84 team sticks out to me because remember they didn't trail ever the whole year. Yeah. Them in the 90 Reds, they never, from day one till the end, they never trailed. But if you're 66, 67, 68, 70 after 100 games, I mean, you literally think of it now, how that helps you now, because you can literally play 50-50 baseball, 51-52% baseball and coast and then save your guys. Now with expanded playoffs, you don't need to run your top 2 or top 3 pitchers out more than 4 innings. No. It really saves you a lot if you can run out. And it looks like Tampa's going to run something crazy like that. But the flip side of that is how many games can Oakland lose?
They're done.
I went through a thing I mentioned it before. Baseball's so much data from a betting point of view. I've done this enough where I've tried different things. Maybe do you try to identify who's a middle tier team was undervalued and then they took off, like the Marlins in 03. From Memorial Day on, they were just winning series and winning series and winning series. They were dogs. That's like the perfect storm of finding somebody. There's a few other decent examples. You go up a lot of times. The team starts. You're like, oh, that team's. The Yankees heyday, the Braves, and then recently, the Dodgers. They're laying too much. Yep. How do you squeeze any profit out of that? Flip side is, who's really stinks? Who can you just beat up on constantly? you're gonna lay a lot of wood. But oh my God, if a team loses 110 games, there's some profit in there to make. I mean, Oakland won last night, I believe, right?
Oakland,
they got 10.
I would lean, and Kansas City as well. They stink.
Kansas City's terrible. Oakland is historically terrible. And then you're in this thing where I think they're going to play at the AAA stadium in Vegas next year. So they're not even going to be, this is it. And Oakland's what? There's 2,000 people in the stands. It's like, they know they're going to be dull. I wouldn't say they're tanking apart, but they're just, everybody's just going to beat them. They're 10 and what are they? 10 and 40? What? They're under 30%. I mean, they're playing 27% baseball. If they play 35% baseball, they still lose 110 games.
100 games. Yeah, they're 10 and 30.
Now you won't make any money if people are laying 3-1 or 350 on them all year, but that's not what's going on. Their teams are laying 210, 220, 240. That train's going to run out a little bit, but I think I said it on the telecast before. There was a year Tampa was really bad, and the second half of the year they were like 1-30 on the road. I mean, 1-30 is extreme, but I think this looks like that Detroit team from the early 2000s. I think they were like 40 and 121.
Oh, they were horrible teams.
They were unbelievable. I mean, bad teams were going in and sweep.
I think that's the year Verlander lost like 21 games too.
Oh yeah, yes. I think he was either rookie or his second year.
Yeah, early in his career.
Yeah. So Kansas City's bad too. The one team I think I'm still going to stick to. We talked about when we did the totals beginning of the year. We both played under in the Marlins, and the Marlins haven't scored. They don't score. They pitch pretty well because their main guy is a group pitcher, but they just don't score. But they haven't dumped yet.
Right.
If you just flat played against them all year, you're like exactly even. You're actually down a little bit. But I look for them to go on a run of dumping. I don't know how big the run's going to be, but I fully expect that. Like they were favored against the Reds all 3 games last week, and they lost all 3. So, and the Reds, I mean, who are the Reds?
No one.
You're going to get swept at home by the Reds. So it's a little bit of an indication that maybe I'm getting close to being correct. But if we had this conversation mid-June and they're 10 games under 500 and they've dumped, that's the team that's kind of the team I think to play against, especially when they're favorites.
All right. Outstanding stuff as always. At Professor Shine the Prop, and of course from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemson Ridge Road. That's really good stuff, man. We pretty much hit on the gamut, a lot of stuff. Next week, I want to kind of start to look, believe it or not, even though we're going to creep into Memorial Day weekend, dog days of summer, I want to start to maybe a little sneak peek into some NFL matchups. Obviously, some of these week 1 lines are kind of sitting there, but I want to get into
totals.
The total,
win totals.
We're gonna have
yes, no to make the playoffs.
Yeah, we're gonna hit on those. We'll do like the old school, right? Mike and the Mad Dog. You want to do the W loss, right?
Right.
All right, brother. I always appreciate your great insight as always. Everyone give him a follow. He's brilliant on Twitter and a troll, and we love that as well. He gets both ends of it. He takes it, he gives it, and very good insight on online as well. Professor Shine. All right, Prop. Appreciate a couple moments, pal.
Take care. Thank you.